This story involves real loss, unanswered questions, and a case that authorities now describe as serial murder. Viewer discretion is advised. For years, these deaths were dismissed as overdoses, accidental, tragic, unrelated, until one man survived, and what he told police changed everything. Ohio has seen countless overdose deaths over the past decade. It's a tragic reality of the opioid crisis, and for the most part, these cases are quickly categorized and filed away. Few are deeply investigated. Between 2023 and 2024, a series of men were found dead across different parts of Ohio. The cause of death in each case was drug toxicity. Different locations, different dates, different lives cut short. At first glance, absolutely nothing connected them. No alarms were raised, no suspect was named, no major investigation was launched. They were just more statistics in a crisis that had already claimed so many. Families were left to grieve, assuming their loved ones had fallen victim to a tragic, but common, accident. The system moved on, unaware that something far more sinister was at play. The truth was hidden in plain sight, disguised as a familiar tragedy. As time passed, a few investigators began noticing something subtle, a detail that was easy to overlook. It wasn't physical evidence left at a scene, but a digital breadcrumb trail. Each victim they discovered had met the same woman shortly before dying. Her name was Rebecca Auborn. Authorities later confirmed that these encounters were arranged privately. They weren't publicly linked or immediately traceable. These were quiet meetings, far from the public eye. Despite this emerging connection, the deaths officially remained classified as overdoses. On paper, they were still tragic accidents. The link was a curious coincidence, but without more evidence, it wasn't enough to reclassify the cases as homicides. It seemed the pattern would remain a theory, a suspicion held by a few, until one of these encounters ended very, very differently. One man did not die. He survived a near-fatal overdose and was able to seek immediate medical help. His survival was the key that unlocked the entire case. According to investigators, he provided critical information that law enforcement had been missing. He gave them a timeline of his encounter, he shared communication records, and most importantly, he gave them the name Rebecca Auborn. This survivor became the turning point. What had once appeared to be a random series of unrelated tragedies now looked deliberate, calculated, and horrifyingly intentional. The survivor's testimony transformed the investigation from a passive review of cold cases into an active hunt for a potential killer. His story gave a voice to the victims who could no longer speak for themselves. With this new information, investigators began the painstaking process of building a case. They started reviewing everything they could get their hands on: digital communications, phone records, and financial transactions. They traced drug sources and re-examined toxicology reports from each of the deceased men. They were no longer looking for signs of accidental overdose. They were searching for a pattern of criminal intent, and the pattern became clearer and clearer. Prosecutors later stated in court that these were not reckless accidents. They were intentional acts. The evidence pointed to one person. Rebecca Auborn was arrested, and in late 2025, in a move that surprised many, she pleaded guilty to 4 counts of murder and 1 count of felonious assault. With that plea, authorities publicly described the case for what it was: a serial killing. But a guilty plea comes with a trade-off. There was no trial, no jury testimony, no public cross-examination of evidence or witnesses, and most significantly, no full, public explanation of motive. The plea closed the legal case, but it left a void filled with unanswered questions. First, were there more victims? Investigators confirmed the 4 murders she pleaded guilty to, but they also acknowledged they were reviewing additional overdose cases for any possible connection to her. A final number has never been released. What was the motive? Officials have not publicly confirmed whether it was financial, psychological, or something else entirely. The why remains locked away. And finally, why did it take so long to connect the dots? The simple answer is that the early deaths were ruled accidental. Critics argue the system just wasn't designed to detect intentional overdoses disguised as common tragedies. This case terrified investigators for one simple reason: overdoses don't leave obvious crime scenes. Unlike violent crimes, there's often no weapon, no sign of forced entry, no struggle, and rarely any witnesses. Experts warn that this makes intentional overdose one of the hardest crimes to detect and prosecute. It's a method of killing that mimics a public health crisis. The evidence is literally consumed by the victim. In this case, it was only the testimony of a survivor that exposed the deadly pattern. Without him, investigators have admitted that deaths may have never been connected. They would have remained isolated incidents, filed away as accidental overdoses, and the true nature of the crimes might have been lost forever. It highlights a terrifying vulnerability in how we investigate death in the modern age. Rebecca Auburn now awaits sentencing, scheduled for February 2026. Because of her guilty plea, she will never face a trial. Many of the specific details of her crimes may never be publicly revealed. The full story is sealed away with her plea deal, and for the families of the victims, this means they may never get the answers they deserve. They may never know why their loved ones were targeted, or if all of the victims were ever truly identified. The legal system delivered a conviction, but it couldn't deliver closure. The silence from the defendant leaves a permanent void where the truth should be. This brings us to one final, chilling question. If one man hadn't survived, how many deaths would still be labeled accidental? And more importantly, how many similar cases, in Ohio and beyond, are still being missed right now? Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into complex cases.